Nervous? A little bit sloshed? Up to something in the bathroom? Flight attendants can tell. From your outfit to your occupation, they're trained to soak up every little detail about you when you get on a plane. Without fail, there will always be passengers who think they can get one over on the airline and pack a bigger carry-on than permitted. While you may get lucky and make it through check-in and security with a bag that is not standard size, flight attendants will know immediately if your baggage is going to cause them issues. The perfectly positioned crew member who welcomes you onto the plane isn't just there for sentimental value. They're there to move things along and get passengers seated in a timely manner. Flights are on a tightly controlled and strategic schedule. Flight attendants help make takeoff times by directing passengers to their seats and, in the case of these baggage renegades, spotting carry-ons that will not fit in the overhead bins. Flight crews have seen thousands of bags and know at a glance whether or not your bag will indeed allow the overhead bin to latch for a safe takeoff. They have years of experience in politely convincing even the most stubborn passenger that their luggage will not fit overhead. If you think you can get away with an extra half inch, you're likely in for a gate check once you cross paths with your plane's flight attendants. Even though traveling while sick really isn't recommended, sometimes there's no avoiding it. If so, you might notice your flight attendant shooting you extra glances during your flight. Air pressure and altitude can have an effect on healthy passengers, but they can make an already sick passenger significantly sicker. The crew wants to avoid a medical emergency at all costs, especially mid-flight, so once the door closes, they will pay special attention to the passengers who look under the weather. It's not abnormal, especially post-pandemic, to see passengers on a flight wearing medical masks. Flight attendants may make note of these passengers as potentially feeling sick, but they will also look for swollen or red eyes or sweating when scanning guests. If any signs of sickness are present, the crew will keep an eye on the passenger to make sure their situation does not worsen throughout the flight. Is there a doctor in the house? Nobody wants to give birth 30,000 feet in the air, and flight attendants don't particularly want to add midwife to their long list of skills. If you are pregnant and showing, they will likely notice your baby bump and be able to pinpoint how far along you are. All expectant parents show pregnancy differently, of course, but flight attendants have plenty of practice in gauging how close you are to full term. If they suspect you may be past their flight requirements for pregnancy, they may ask you to confirm or even prove your status. Flying is relatively safe for pregnancy, and parents-to-be can travel on domestic flights up to around 36 weeks. Any later than this runs the very real chance of natural labor occurring mid-flight, which is not an ideal situation on an airplane. Airlines may even require proof of your due date and a clean bill of health from your doctor in order to fly, especially if you are past the second trimester. No, really, is anyone here a doctor? Flight attendants are always on the lookout for passengers with special skills that could be of use in an emergency situation. Medical professionals, first responders, and fellow airline employees could all act as an extra set of hands if something goes wrong. Medical emergencies, unruly passengers, or even an impending crash are all situations in which a flight attendant could need help from qualified passengers.
If there's a doctor on board, please press your call button.
Even if you're not wearing your uniform, airline crew may already have clocked you for being a helpful resource if needed. They may notice, for example, you reading a medical journal or a professional magazine. Fear of flying is common, even though your chances of dying in a plane crash are minuscule. Flight attendants are pros at flying in an airplane and know all the secrets of how to combat the anxiety that comes with hurtling through the air in what is essentially a fortified aluminum can. They've seen plenty of nervous passengers come and make it off the plane perfectly safe and intact, and you'll be one too.
All airlines,
135.
all airlines have crashed at one time or another. That doesn't mean that they are not safe.
If a flight attendant notices someone who is nervous, they could approach them in one of two ways. If they believe the person is afraid of flying, they'll show that passenger some extra love throughout the flight. On the other hand, nervousness can be a sign of something more nefarious at play, and a flight attendant will monitor the situation from afar. Both of these situations can be dangerous, though, as panic attacks are difficult to navigate while in the sky and have the potential to create an unsafe environment for other passengers. While flight attendants are all smiles with their greetings, they're also taking notice of anyone who may be acting abnormally. Passengers who won't meet a flight attendant's eye when speaking, look away quickly, or are vague and shifty when asked a question put up some major red flags. Of course, it's entirely possible that individuals who fit this description are having a bad day, are scared of flying, or are simply uncomfortable looking people in the eye. Other times, though, it could be something more serious. Either way, if a flight attendant feels as though a passenger is being shifty, they'll keep an eye on them throughout the flight to make sure it's nothing serious. Flight attendants care about the safety of all passengers, so they will scan guests for any disabilities that may hinder them in an emergency. Passengers who need extra time and help are typically boarded first, which makes it pretty easy for crew members to spot. However, there may be another reason to look for smaller injuries, temporary disabilities, casts, or medical conditions in guests who are boarding. Passengers who are wearing a cast or sling would be at a disadvantage if they find themselves needing to use their injured body part. They also are likely disqualified from sitting in an exit row, as these passengers have the added responsibility of operating the emergency exit door. Knowing which passengers may require additional support and where they are located is important in the event of an emergency. On the other hand, flight attendants also look for guests who look strong and fit to pinpoint who may be able to help in an emergency. It's not uncommon for flight attendants to either ask for volunteers or pick out individuals they think would be good for the exit row seat. In case of an emergency, whoever sits in the exit row is responsible for opening the emergency exit door, which requires pretty much full dexterity and range of motion. Since the exit row seats come with a bit more legroom, they may scope out a capable-looking extra tall passenger to give them a little reprieve from the cramped middle seats. As passengers file into the plane for boarding, flight attendants may also note where stronger-looking guests are sitting. While emergencies are rare, it is good to know where you can look to enlist help when you need sheer physical strength. Flight attendants will also notice the elderly and very young when greeting passengers. This is specifically true when they are traveling by themselves. A lot of airlines have programs in place that allow children and elderly people to travel without family or friends to help them along the way. Instead, airline staff make sure they are where they need to be. While the crew should be well aware of any unaccompanied minors and seniors on their flight before boarding, they will still take the time to really connect once they are on the plane. Throughout the flight, staff will pay them extra attention and check in on them regularly, then help them along their way once the plane lands. Children and seniors not in a program will still be noticed by flight attendants, as they are two vulnerable groups during an emergency. Flight attendants can easily tell if you have had one too many drinks at the bar prior to boarding. They can see it in your movements, smell it on your breath, and hear it in the slurring of your words. If you are deemed too intoxicated at boarding, the crew can absolutely deny you entrance into the flight.
How many beers are we allowed to order at once?
I'm not sure. No one has ever asked that before.
Not only do you run the chance of getting sick on the plane, but drinking to excess could potentially put all the other passengers at risk. There is also the comfort of the rest of the plane to think about, as all sober people know that having one intoxicated person in the mix is a recipe for disaster. Flight attendants have no idea if they will have to handle a belligerent drunk person or a happy one. This unpredictable situation naturally puts the entire crew on guard, so it may be best to leave the last airport drink on the bar before heading to the gate. Another reason a flight attendant may be looking at you from head to toe is your outfit. The clothes on your back can tell the crew a lot about you, including your effectiveness at survival. The flight crew will notice everything from your heels to your layers, as well as anything else that can impair a hasty emergency exit if needed. Restrictive clothing is generally a no-no for planes, as it can make the experience a lot more uncomfortable. Swelling and bloating does occur when people fly, so form-fitting clothing becomes tighter than ever before. Wearing comfortable clothes and shoes on the plane will ensure you are both comfortable and able to jump up and act if there actually is an emergency. Staff will also be looking for any outfits that go against their guidelines. While not many airlines have full-out dress codes anymore, you still shouldn't show up in clothing that's too revealing. In fact, people have been kicked off of flights for wearing crop tops and similar styles. Families with small children should never be separated on a plane, but it actually happens quite often. A lot of airlines require you to pay extra to choose your seats. This means that even though you buy the seats at the same time, your family's seats are likely scattered throughout the plane unless you pay more. When flight attendants see you coming through to board with toddlers and young children, they note the seats listed on your ticket. Though they cannot guarantee a seat change for your family, they will try to pull together seats for you to sit together. Traveling is stressful, and tensions can get high when getting settled on a plane. While flight attendants are helping direct passengers to their assigned seats, they are also scanning the cabin for any interactions that seem out of place. Whether it be a dispute over whose bag is going where in the overhead bins or who is sitting where, arguments can easily happen when boarding a plane. Flight attendants want to put an end to these altercations as soon as they start, as they can escalate quickly and cause an unsafe environment for anyone in the area. Passengers who are busy arguing in the aisle cause a backup in boarders, as no one can reach their seat. Cabin crew are trained to navigate agitated travelers, and the faster they are able to identify a problem, the easier it is to get everyone back on track for a calm flight. Most passengers try hard to adhere to airline guidelines, but there are some who will still try to sneak forbidden items onto a plane. This doesn't usually work out for the smugglers, as flight attendants are pretty good about spotting the things that shouldn't be there. The crew pays close attention to people they might suspect of illegal behavior. That means keeping an eye out for people trying to transport contraband like exotic plants, foods, or even their pets in carry-ons and handbags. Passengers sneaking their own alcohol onto the plane is another thing the crew looks for, as well as people making trips to the restroom just to vape. If you try to sneak one past them, you might be surprised at how quickly they spot your deception.